Right on. Somebody call for an exterminator. That's what I thought. Turner has arrived. Ready to roll out. Battle cruiser operational.
Hello and welcome to the 33rd episode of the Undermind. My guests this week are Johan de Jong, the author of BananaBrain. Hey, how are you?
Hi, good to be back.
And Jean Chassoul, or Sloth. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And the usual starting questions, as basically almost always, what you've been up to. Let's start with BananaBrain. How are you? What were you doing lately?
Well, mostly fixing a lot of bugs. I was planning to add some new features, such as new Dark Templar micro, also Reaver Shuttle micro. But before I got to that, I found so much bugs that I still not got around to it.
Are those like functional bugs or actual coding bugs?
Well, a bit of both. For example, a functional bug in the safe pathing. I just found out that a few weeks ago that it did not work at all because it was not taking walls into account, which means that all units would just walk in a straight line from A to B without any actual pathing. And well, this error is in the COG version and also in the AIIDE version. So, well, now it's fixed and it's already on the basal ladder, but not in the competitions, not in the competition versions.
Alright, I saw that you participated and you were 5th place in the COG tournament. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I also was very close to the number 4 iron.
Yeah, it's like less than 1%, I think. No, it's 1.15% win rate, so it's very close. And it's not really a... Like, I don't see the cross table, let me pull it up, but it is possible that you even had... No, you didn't beat Iron, sorry. So Iron was beating you 25 per 40, but still it's kind of close.
Yes, and there's a kind of a story behind it. For COG, I did not have time to prepare any learning, so my bot went in without any went into the tournament without any learning files. So basically, it is capable of beating Iron, but it needs either pre-learning or enough games. And since they only played 40 rounds in COG, that's not enough for BananaBrain to find the right strategy. Otherwise, it probably would have won, or at least beat Iron.
I will get back to you on that, the learning and the opponent-specific strategies a little bit later, but now let's ask Sloth what you've been up to.
Hi. Well, I spent September working on the AIIDE submission, trying to have the bot ready to competition, but I clearly failed miserably around time constraint issues and other issues. that it make me impossible to be ready in time. Since that submission has been passed already, I been I retake focus from the bot to the infrastructure software that I've been working to run the bots on my environment. And since the FOSDEM development rooms has released for the conference the next year, now I'm trying to focus on my proposal that I'm suggest for the competition that I'm suggesting, and trying to enable with that bot authors to use the Linux environment or whatever other wrapper or BW API language that use or that grab the library to enable other languages outside of the common C++ or Java.
I think that's commendable, and the wider the available languages are, the palette of available languages, the better, I think, because many people just don't want to learn a new language just to code a bot. And well, the next topic I prepared is, of course, COG. And I'm looking at the cross table now, and we have some interesting results, so to speak. What are your observations? Did you follow that closely, or did you watch some of the replays?
No, didn't saw any replay. I did have a brief look at the cross table because I wanted to know why I was below iron. But then I saw only 40 rounds, and well, yeah, 40 rounds is not enough to find the winning strategy. So no.
I think that from what I noticed, McRave present a very nice bot on that competition. From what I recall from replays that I saw, he have like a very nice river micro or river strategy now that he present on that for the first time on that competition. If hopefully I'm not mistaken the facts, but that's kind of what I'm recall specifically from Core.
There are two newer bots. The one is Xiaoyi, which I know nothing about, but sounds Chinese or, well, Far Eastern, and Chinese or Korean. I don't have any information on that. And Beta Star, which I know is a Chinese bot from Nanking University or Nanjing University. I don't know what is the correct pronunciation, but I had no contact, or I think the community had no contact with the developers of those bots. What do you think about that?
Indeed, as far as I know, those authors don't have contact with our community. But I do know that those bots are forked. And if I'm correct, XIAOE is a SATA fork, and Betastar is a CSE fork, which is again a fork from a well-known bot, Recruiters.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember from the last episode that apparently Betastar is like a fifth generation fork, and the Xiaomi, we know really little about him, apart from the fact that he's a side fork. It's interesting though that the company of each is in theory like in charge of this development is a very big, from my understanding, Chinese computer vision company, and that's only like the only thing that I know about them. So in theory, it's like an interesting lab or group project, but the reality is that they present a side of work.
I tried to Google the Xiaoyi, but the Xiaoyi AI Lab, which is the name of the contributor, gives us nothing, so I can't really do more than that. But it is from China, according to the COG submission table. Also, looking at the cross table, it is very interesting because other than a few outliers, which we will discuss later, there almost always seems to be all or nothing. Like most of the matches, like close to 40. It's rare to have a tie. Only in the middle bracket there is some close win rates, but usually it's over 30 per 40 matches won. So if a bot beats another bot, it does it pretty reliably. Now, that at first glance would suggest to me that these bots just have builds or openings. Let's call them openings because you have to discount learning at this point. These bots have openings that beat the other bots' available openings. And this is just a rock, paper, scissors type of arrangement. Do you agree with my observation on this?
Yes, I'm looking at the table right now, and I think you're right. But I also think that most of the bots that lots of them are from last year, and there's a lot of development going on. So I think the older bots have an especially hard time beating the newer ones, the ones that are still under development.
Yeah, but it's not really fair sometimes if you consider that those bots are forks. So of course forks gonna be at least as good as their parents. So it's a little bit skewed, I think.
True, but some of the stronger ones, like Purple Wave and McRave, are not forks. So it's not all forks.
Well, yeah, that's true. Just speaking in general. So
I think it's very natural to have these situations in which certain aspects of the game became this rock, paper, scissors type of thing, because you have that even in human meta, because at certain levels the game, the early phases of the game, as soon as you start getting information from the scouts, is try to see what is the strategy that your opponent is doing, and how or what you can do to counter or to react to that. So there is certain like situations or buildings or matches between the races that you can see like those type of patterns.
So an interesting outlier is Oprimo bot, which is near the bottom, but it managed to beat Purple Wave, 28 per 40 matches against Purple Wave. So it had just one winning strategy, it seems.
Yeah, but in that particular case, I think that what Dan explained was that Purple Wave have like in his coding consider Oprimo bot like a random bot, because he plays like random on others. So on that particular tournament, when he decided to play Terran, I think, and that messed up with his logic. So the games was like in the matches that Oprimo bot move his workers or do something or build something, he won against a Purple Wave bot that don't do nothing. And in the cases that uh, both crash kind of way, Purple Wave won the games in which he mined, because he won by resources, and the Primo bot don't even mind on those particular games. So I think that was like what happened between those particular bots.
That's interesting.
Yeah, interesting story. And I think it's also very surprising that given this misconfiguration of Purple Wave, that OpprimoBot did not win all of the games, because apparently in 12 of the games, OpprimoBot completely failed to do anything.
That's just silly. But yeah, other than that, there are some interesting outliers, but mostly it is all or nothing, and I think that's because of the limited learning. If I understood correctly, there are no pre-learning files allowed in COG. Is that correct? Let me pull up the rules.
As far as I know, it is allowed, but I simply did not have time to make them.
Yes, I've been reading rules recently, and it is allowed if you put it like in the AI folder. What is not allowed is that you put like any type of pre-made learning of pre-made files in the read directory, because that will have like rewritten in the next round. So the rules specifically what they said about that topic in particular is that you can use pre-learn things. You just need to be careful in the directory that you put it.
Okay. It's a little bit confusing reading the rules, to be honest. But now it's clear.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, that begs the question: what kind of changes did you make to BananaBrain, Johan, for COG specifically? Was there any that was COG specific and never seen before?
I think the only changes I had to make is because of the map pool of COG, because COG has some quite specific maps. Most notably, what's the name again of that map? There's a map where you have to do mineral walking to get to your opponent. Do you happen to remember the name of that map?
Actually, I have all the map names. There is Heartbreak Ridge, but that's a fairly standard map. There is Alchemist, which is not a good map, I think, and El Nino, which is basically a variant of some other map. Great Barrier Reef, Sniper Ridge, and Python. Those were the maps. I'm sending you the link.
Okay, but the COG has a bigger map pool than that, and they select 5 maps at random, but you will only know after you send in your bot which of these maps they take. So you have to be prepared for the complete map pool.
I see.
And the map that I meant is Plasma.
My favorite.
I did not have them, so I made them, but apparently I made them for nothing because the map wasn't chosen. And I also made some, I had to fix some bugs. I believe the hitchhiker map caused the map analysis to crash. So I also had to make some improvements for that. And that was my complete preparation for COG. I did not have time to do more, just to get it to work on all the maps.
Yes, that's exactly right. Rule base about the maps in COG. I wonder if AIIDE is the same about maps, or they have a fixed map pool. Can you comment on that, Johan?
It's a fixed set.
So yeah, Alchemist is a weird choice though, because that's universally regarded as a poor attempt of at an asymmetrical 3-player map. So just looking at the thumbnail, it's not really a good map, and has obvious advantages for some starting locations.
Yes, I think that the choice of maps for AIIDE is better because they always have the same set of maps, and the maps are balanced for all races. While the COG map is a set of maps that is randomly chosen, and I don't think they balance it for race.
Yes.
Maybe just need to update the map pool a little bit. To be honest, the whole COG affair seemed a little bit amateurish and hastily thrown together, and with the name change and the website not being available, it created some uproar within the community. I don't think that's how you should treat your participants.
I agree.
Yes, I think the way of how the competition is handled is left a lot to desire. But in other they have like the advantage, or I don't know if call it like that, of being like associated of an academic conference, because it does is an academic event, which all of the importance that those entails, or that entail.
That's no excuse though.
I agree with you with that completely. Yes.
It's no excuse, and compare it to AIIDE, it is far better organized. I would love to talk with the actual organizers and give them an opportunity to share their side of the story, because there might have been other reasons, but still it wasn't very nice. Despite that, 9 new bots were participating this year, which is good. This means that people were not deterred and still worked on their bots. I think that's good news in itself.
Yes, it is. I think it's always good to have this type of events and see that there is actually participations in them, because the most important thing is have like bots and groups and individuals participating in this type of things, I guess.
I think I will download the replays and try to watch some of them, and maybe feature them in the SSCIT broadcast, because that is something we should do. And the only problem is there are a lot of replays, like 6 gigabytes of replays, and not all of them are interesting. It's always a problem with bot replays. You have to watch a lot to get an interesting one.
Hopefully
Yes.
people send you lots of recommendations then.
Yeah, they should do that, but I don't get that many recommendations. So feel free to send me a lot.
Okay, I recommend Purple Wave versus Oprimobot. So then you have a full hour of nothing to talk.
That's a challenge in itself, talking about nothing for an hour.
Some people are very good at it.
Oh yeah, some people make a living about it. And the next competition is AIIDE, which is 3 days from now, October 8th. I don't know which day the actual StarCraft tournament takes place, but still, it is basically right now.
They should be running it right now.
Yep. And did you prepare anything extra for that? Question to you both.
I tried, but I failed. What I was trying to do was the 9734 build order for the Zerg, and I'm still planning to complete that one trick pony strategy from my site for my bot. But that was kind of it.
I had a lot of bug fixes. The most notable one is what I can see in my Git log. It's the last one, and that is where I made some improvements, that it looks at its own army size and the opponent's army size. And if the size of the opponent's army is so large that it could completely crush me, then it will make more units instead of tagging. And that makes a bit of a difference, indeed.
Yeah, all right. In the meantime, there are some other general transmission type stuff I want to talk about. First of all, did you see the new bug discovered in Brood War? 21 years and still a new bug has been discovered. It's basically you make a building. It was demonstrated by with a pylon. Attack it and cancel it at the last possible second, and then you get the another unit selected. And this is due to some memory address reuse. So basically, you by building and canceling a building, you get scouting information, get the location of the enemy base. It's absolutely silly.
It's crazy that this thing happened like 20 years after the game is released.
I don't know how well it can be used competitively. I mean, at the stage of the game when it is useful, it's very, very resource intensive, but still it's interesting. I don't know if it's a serious enough bug to warrant some banning or something. But it is clearly not intended as this way.
I think the ones that are pretty much affecting the game are the pylon one that through that you can like see where is located your enemy, but through the replays you can like see if your opponent do it like in a game or in tournament and disqualified, because one of the mechanisms or the steps that you need to do is like cancel a pylon that you are like created or something like that. But from what I get, it like that bug like breaks completely the game, the competitive game if you play against a Protoss, because if the Protoss do it and can do it like no matter what map you are playing, you can like see where is your enemy. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know how big of an advantage is it, because obviously it's not meant to use this way, and I would ban using this on principle. But that being said, if it's not that big of a deal, then maybe you shouldn't care.
Yeah, I think it could like affect some games like on ladder, on the human ladder are sometimes like skills levels. People like to troll, like the PM type of players. But of course, in competition, this is one of the new bugs that belong to the long list of sort of things that you know that you can't do in tournaments or in competitions, and once you get caught like doing it, you are going to get banned from the competition and get in trouble.
Do you think we should ban this for bots? I don't know if bots can execute this or make use of this.
No, I think they can't execute it because the bug is around the UI code, and we don't use and don't have like UI. We interact with the game engine through BW API. So I think, from my understanding, that our niche is not affected by this.
But you do reveal some map info and the location of an enemy unit for a second, and I think that is not dependent of selecting anything. But I really don't know. We have to do research. The first person who manages to reproduce this bug gets pretzel. Yes, one whole pretzel. In the meantime, we have another guest arriving, Dr. Bryan Weber. Hi, Bryan. Glad to have you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Obviously.
No problem. It's good that you're here. Okay, and now that we have a lot of different topics, let's circle back to the beginning of the episode, and I'd like to put you on the spot and ask what you've been up to lately.
Mostly I have been making sure. So I have a grad student this semester, and I've been rewriting the bot so that future students can use it with more ease. The main concerns are parsimony. I, in fact, deleted a lot of the combat code that was good but ugly, and now it is simple but less good. And the hope is that this will make some more room for students to enter and edit and change the bot. So lots of refactoring, tons of refactoring. And I've been setting it up to take some arbitrary Python code so that students who are not as familiar with C++ can also contribute to the cause, since the requirements for familiarity with Linux environments for the testing through SC Docker, familiarity with Visual Studio, familiarity with C++, and familiarity with, say, like machine learning models, so on and so forth, leaves many students with a lot of challenges just to get everything installed. And I'm trying to get that down to as little as possible. So that's been a lot of the work that I've been working on.
And we've been talking about COG a little bit. Do you have some thoughts or observations on that competition? And the competition itself, the games, the results, the maps, everything.
I'm actually thrilled with how I turned out in this competition, because I didn't know I was competing this year. And last year, I felt I followed the instructions about how to manage histories very well. But I did not take some of their advice about making different profiles per player. And as a result, my bot played randomly with zero learning through the entire tournament, and placed something like one above the bottom. And this year, now that the directories have been apparently fixed with no changes, I am now 18th out of 27, which is right underneath Alberta, and that's not bad for something written, all the way through. So I'm pretty happy with that. Hopefully next year I'll have another version to contribute, and we'll move up slightly above Alberta. Hopefully, I think that's a big task, but moving from 18th to, I don't know, 15th would be nice.
Many bot authors think, and I think rightfully so, that the goal for your bot with every competition is not to get to the top instantly, but improve steadily. And I think that's how you should approach this thing in general, because there are a lot of bots, there are a lot of good programmers, and you can't beat them all at once.
No, I think it is too much. The resources are too similar between the groups. And so, like, each person has similar resources in terms of time and brain power available. So in order to defeat a bot that is older than you, it tends to be very challenging, because they have, I don't know, an extra 500 hours of coding done, not to mention their testing capacities. And so moving up is very, very challenging, and every year the gaps between the players gets harder and harder. So it's a challenge just to stay put. I think it's foolhardy to aim to anticipate being at the top. It means you haven't thought very hard about the challenges.
I like that all the bots are still competing, because they are a good benchmark. UI Alberto bot is right in the middle, and it is a very good benchmark for new bots. You should aim to beat it, or Steamhammer as well. Although Steamhammer is constantly updated. I don't know which version is submitted for COG.
It must have been broken, because something it should not have been. It's way better than whatever its placement was. So
Yeah, maybe Jay just pulled the McRave and submitted a buggy version.
I think that happened, or when they quote unquote fixed the directory structure, it broke whatever his directory structure is, and he then played bad openings all the time. I'm not sure. I didn't watch it very carefully. Very strange.
Well, Jay actually did submit a buggy version last year, and this year he did not want to submit a new version because he did not want to participate in COG.
All right, buggy version number 2. Wow, very curious.
Well, yeah, the same buggy version as last year.
Well, I took a look at some of his code and I tried to emulate some of his how he divides his army cognitively. So I started copying that. But there's a few divisions he has that I don't have that I need to add. Such as he has a dedicated squad for defense of bases, and he separates that out from the scouting squad and the I'll just call it the combat squad. And so I have a scouting squad now and two combat squads, but no dedicated defense squad. And I think it's very clear from watching my fights against Corsairs that some sort of dedicated defense role needs to be made. Fighting is not simply killing the closest thing to your base on a ever expanding radius out. Especially given that there are vulnerable spots that need to be continually defended. It has something to do with the speed of the enemy units, their ability to hit things next to them, and the speed of your units. Something about the differential. I'm sure there's a general formula, but I don't know what it is. So I make a defense squad.
Bryan, can you describe a little bit more about your adventure with the Python interpreter and your bot? Because I think you bring a nice point in which you claim that there is certain things or different type of knowledge in different areas that competitions are kind of asking to have if you want to use like some of the dynamic languages or whatever thing that go outside Java and C++. So that's like kind of my personal opinion and has been since I start to appear, I think, here on the podcast. But I think it's good to hear someone that has been through the process. Yeah, I deny completely to go through it because I think it's hell and it doesn't like worth it too much at the end. But I want to hear, well, how go your adventure going.
Well, it's actually a pretty long adventure. So I have been trying to include some machine learning packages in my bot for a while. It currently has a genetic algorithm that's by hand, but there are other genetic algorithms are pretty easy to program, depending on how sophisticated it is. Now,
Sorry, did you see genetic or generic? Because
genetic programs are pretty easy to write. In my opinion, I thought they were not so hard to write, but it depends on the sophistication. So, Cherry Pie has access to a very sophisticated genetic algorithm, which optimizes very well. Mine is by hand. It will optimize, but it optimizes very slowly in comparison. It doesn't have the same covariance estimators and so on and so forth. It's simpler. It's not as sophisticated. I can write it myself in a few thousand lines, whereas I would be really, I'd be out for a year if I tried to write their KNN, whatever it was, genetic algorithm. Anyway, I wanted to do something more sophisticated, so I tried to include a machine learning library like MLPack, which I actually think it's more possible to include than I thought, but I had a lot of challenges with that. Then
I'm sorry, but in what language or what stack
C++.
is MLPack? C++. Okay, thanks.
MLPack is a C++ learning language, but it's not very well supported for the Visual Studio environment. Almost all of the instructions are for Linux-based installation, and I've even heard some of the coders for MLPack made some comments a few years ago that it'll never be supported in a Windows environment fully. And the instructions are over like 4 or 5 pages of install this, link this, run this, and then the Linux instructions are, I don't know, sudo apt-get mlpack or whatever. It's like one line. It's
That
very simple.
most of the time, that's precisely my point with around this type of modern data analytics, machine learning, yada yada frameworks. Torchcraft, TensorFlow, Cafe too. Well, that is PyTorch right now, but you name it, whatever it is, usually is a pain to install in the Windows environment, and on a Unix-based system, it's like apt-get or yum install, and that's it, and you have it.
There are now Python development tools as part of Visual Studio, where they're using PyBind, and big thanks to Dan Gant about kind of like how to go through this. But there are some Visual Studio PyBind connections, which I have enough to get working. I can get it working, but their directory structure is unpleasant, and I need to rewrite the bot as an executable client in order to get the directory structure to work in a way that it can find the right libraries. Because tournaments restrict my items to be in particular libraries, and PyBind must be next to the StarCraft executable, at least as far as I can tell. So if I make Coonibot an executable, then I can, I think, call a phantom executable that calls PyBind.
It's nice to see that a solution exists and is usable, and you are seeing like light. And I hope, I am sure that your students are going to use that a lot. Hopefully, Python is very popular around these subjects and areas. I have like just a question really. It's like, don't you think that that approach, usable as there is like very specific? And by that I mean that if we think of the Python ecosystem as a whole, you are sort of not you, but the competition state of things are kind of. If you want to use Python, you can, as you are showing, but only if you do it this way. What I mean is like there is like a lot of other tools that get out that you can use, like because don't have like the good support that for the Windows environment. That I don't know.
Yeah, so it's one specific solution, and I kind of get your point that we lose access to a lot of the Linux ecosystem by being tied to Visual Studio for BWAPI. And now again, I want to be clear that I don't know exactly how much we're losing touch of, because I am learning through the glasses of a person who learned most of their, I don't know, their C++ programming through this Visual Studio approach. But I'm seeing a lot of help for Linux, and it seems like the grass is a lot greener on the other side. The easiest solution I have so far is from Jaeger's, and we use a Pi installer to create an executable. And at the start of the game, we execute some arbitrary Python script that's been converted into an executable. And right now, my bot calculates the square root of 2 and prints it to a text file along with some junk at the start of every game. And that is the placeholder for my graduate students. He's going to have an analysis script that will help the bot learn. We've been studying classifying opening parameters as win or loss, and it seems like we can use that like a random forest as a filter to help predict what opening parameters are tolerable instead of learning through this genetic algorithm that converges after 1,000 games or so against one opponent on one map with a fixed seed.
Sounds really incredible. I am no doubt that your students are going to amaze us with what they can accomplish. So thanks for doing this, and thanks for share your opinion and your adventure with in your development so far. I think it's great.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm sure I believe Kiwik will probably try and submit something to maybe COG next year as a bot change paper or something like that, a short paper. We'll see. Depends on how the results go and what the improvement looks like. So,
Do you have any links for the public to maybe start developing in Python?
okay, let me see what I can find here quick. I have actually a family of links I can post. Would you like me to click that afterwards?
Yeah, I just I'd add it to the post about the podcast on the site, so that can wait. In the meantime, if there is nothing to add to the Pythony things, then I'd like to make an observation. I'm still looking at the COG results, and what is interesting that there are more independent participants this year than university and company teams or participants. So it seems that this scene is mostly run by talented hobbyists right now. And looking at the participants in the previous years, it was more of a university thing and shifted into hobbyist territory. And looking at the top bots, that is further reinforced because I think the first university bot is Beta Star, and it is on 9th place. So it seems that universities are lagging behind.
Well, universities tend to have. So, for example, I am waiting for my student to complete his particular task. The key thing we want to do is check the value of this filter alone with no other changes. So what that means is all other development on the bot needs to stop, pause, or is otherwise not going to be using any of my or his cognitive resources until this change can be done and tested in a kind of A/B environment. In fact, my upgrade to 4.4 was a big mistake because our testing environment does not actually handle 4.4 right now. We are using SC Docker, and we'll have to reinstall that. That can take a day or two, depending on how often we meet. That can, set back our timetable a week. There could be problems, given that the installation instructions are in Windows and we're testing in a Linux environment. So working on the bot for a university can actually set back your real goals. You are only able to work in one area at a time because your goal is to make some sort of scientific contribution. And this results in steady but very, very slow progress forward.
Let's decouple two things here. First of all is the number of participants by universities. That is a very different thing than the results themselves, because I don't expect someone fresh out of university to win a tournament, but I do expect more universities to participate maybe. It seems that Linux support is more and more deserved from the developers, because you just talked about it a lot.
It seems like getting everything in one. Here's what would be fantastic. I would love if there was a one-click installer that just allow me to fantasize for a moment. Okay. The fantasy would be there's a one-click installer or an executable that you put on your computer, you press install, and then it just sits on your computer until all of the necessary components for BWAPI, BWEM, maybe BWEB, or like one or two of the combat sim, a map sim, and the maybe Chaos Launcher and StarCraft all in one click. So from there, you would have the example bot. The example bot would compile when you click compile, and then it would test the example bot when you click start game in Chaos Launcher. That would be the dream. And the fact that students have to go through, developers have to install each of these disparate systems independently before they have anything to do is very challenging. It makes it kind of irreducibly complex. No one component can be removed or skipped, and each component is painful independently. And that makes it very hard. I think that's the biggest barrier to having new people contribute. If there was a one-click installer, I think this would be much faster.
I think what you are suggesting is something that is doable. The only pain point or break point or big issue that it could have is that that I don't see that within the Windows environment and with the including Visual Basic. That's what I'm saying. Like I think that what you are asking is possible or is possible today, but is not from the perspective of continuing with the protagonist role that the Windows 32-bit environment available in competitions have today. I think that if we try to enable, like I don't know, like work in a hybrid environment that works not only for the current active bot zone competition, but for any sort of bot developed on Linux. In Linux is a reality that you can have or could have like a one tip type or sort of installer like you are dreaming about. And I think that's kind of sort of in a way the goal of the current SEC Docker. I don't think that the execution that they have is is not like completely aligned of or on which you are after, and surely they have like margin to improvement, but it's like something that aligns with that sort of things. But the yeah the be like I don't know really like the development focus on Visual Studio that most other authors do, like in the C++ side of things, gets like completely outside of the scope of what we are describing here. I think that these sort of solutions apply more to the client bots type of bots that you are now like adventuring with your changes with Conibot or other types of client bots.
It looks like there's some advantages for client bots. And but from my end, I'm not too concerned. How about this? There are definitely advantages, and I'd be happy to convert to whichever one is most advantageous. The conversion does not look like it actually is particularly painful. It looks like it's about a 4 to 6 hour conversion process, if I had to guess. A solid afternoon of converting and then bug fixing and making sure my directories are right is what I guess the conversion would cost in terms of commitment. But I have not made that jump yet, and I probably will not make that jump at least until the end of the semester. So we'll see.
Yeah, this whole environment could use a lot of streamlining, and one of the great barriers to this is basically the gray area that surrounds StarCraft 1.16, and you have to download it from a third-party site, and this is BW API is kind of supported officially, but it's not really brought up as a in any official communications. So I think, of course, the best thing would be if it worked with remastered and the newest versions of StarCraft. And distributing 1.16 is a risky affair, and many people don't want to do anything with that. That is just one part, though. The other stuff, Chaos Launcher, BW API, etc., could use a unified installer, and I don't see any particular barriers to this.
Well, it would be a big advantage at some point, because if we want more people making it easy as
yeah, just maybe have a site and download an installer package, or at least all the stuff you need in a zip file or something per language. So if you want to develop, I don't know, in Python, then just download the installer and or the zip file. And yeah, someone please do this.
I think it's doable and we can do it as a community. My only point is just that if you need to open the Visual Studio IDE and compile through that, I don't see how you can automate it. But if your client bot, or not only client bot, if you can build your DLL from the command line with CMake or with just make, and you can like automate the process in a script, I think that yeah, we can for sure like it's doable. That's like yeah.
Hey doggo in the background. So I think we talked enough about that, and we kind of know the problems with this. It always comes down to developer time, and since this is a voluntary affair, you can't expect anyone to do this. So let's switch to the next topic, which is a little bit of a self-promo. As you might know, there is a segment called AI News for Gamers in the Pylon show. I've been asked to compile a short clip showcasing anything in the StarCraft AI world that is worth mentioning from a gamer perspective. Now I'm having a little bit of, not troubles, but I'm thinking a lot about this, because I don't know what is interesting and how to present it to the gamer community. I try to showcase some good plays, but as mentioned before, getting a good replay in itself is hard, and getting a good gameplay clips that can be showcased in a few seconds of time yeah, that's even harder and not hard, it just requires time I don't necessarily have. So I'd like to ask you about some feedback for that segment. What do you think should be in there, should not be in there? How can I improve on that?
Make a separate blooper reel as opposed to a primary blooper. Don't mix bloopers and good plays. It is the community of viewers expects AI stuff to be invincible and utterly beyond human capacities because that's how it's presented. And so if you make a blooper reel and mix it with an ad reel of good play, you will bother watchers and they won't take our community seriously. Even though bloopers are a component of this, they don't understand are the restrictions we're under. The one core rules are wild and eliminate the vast majority of invincible AI approaches like DeepMind, right? You can't do that.
That's an interesting point. I will definitely consider it.
It might be useful. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think my only suggestion is that don't sell the Broodware AI community shortly in comparison to the DeepMind or the StarCraft 2 space.
We're different. Our restrictions are different. Our ecosystem is different, and the amount of corporate support we receive is different. They had their interface designed from the ground up by David Churchill and others, I believe. Were there others involved? At least David Churchill was the name that comes to mind. I imagine there was help on Blizzard's end to make sure that that integration was smooth, clear, and effective. Whereas ours is a project made by numerous contributors at different times and places. Though, as a note, whatever happened with WAPI 4.4, I think it's actually, in terms of install, was pretty good. The way it's tied to the newer Visual Studio was much easier than the first time I went through it, and the last 2 times I upgraded. So I think something was better. I thought it was more clear this time. So good plug for 4.4.
Yeah, DeepMind have approximately all the money in the world. Let's not forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the names are the same, but they are completely different games. One is the best 2D strategy game. The other is a 3D game. The environment is very different. Yeah, the comments that Bryan just had about the direct contribution that Blizzard makes or with them is, I think, is on point. In contrast, you can also argue that the StarCraft 2 AI ecosystem or community or whatever you can call it have only DeepMind and only all his hype and on noise is just around this bot project that of course is awesome and deserves all the attention that it got in a way because of the deep learning tricks that they use and the advancements and yada yada. But the Broodware community is not a one team sort of thing. Here we have like Samsung that just defeat the last year a very strong also team effort of the Facebook guys. We have the Facebook guys. We have all these team of AI labs of China and all of the places that they don't are very active in the community, but we can't ignore that they are like members from big members from industry or for different industries, and of course the good hobbyists with the great bots that are like right there, like on the top right now, like defeating everyone. Yeah, I here in Broodware, I think we have a more mix, more bigger. It's a small community, but in comparison with the StarCraft 2, I think we have some advantages that are not related with the Google money.
Oh yeah, I think the passion is a little bit stronger in the Broodwork AI community right now. Alright, and let's have our next big topic, which is Sloth. You mentioned that there is a conference called FOSDEM in the spring, and you were thinking about organizing your own StarCraft AI tournament.
Yes, FOSDEM is a very big, non-commercial, volunteer, self-organized European event in the winter, I think. Is there in Brussels. So we can then like good for a very good beer or taste the good chocolates that they have there. It's a very nice event. It's a very big event. The focus are around develop different open source free communities or developers. So yeah, my what I'm proposing or my community is kind of organizing is a kind of tournament that hopefully will enable the Linux bots yeah, it's kind of hopefully organize the first tournament that in which you can use Linux to realistically play and compete. And for that, the we have been talking a lot about Linux, but uh, maintain support for the existing ecosystem of Windows bots
Hmm.
that are playing and that are working. I think is very important, and the way to do it from the way I look it is try to support even the directory structure that currently we had through the years for the SSEIT style of tournament or yeah. So that's kind of what I'm like proposing.
That would be great because then I think it would be relatively easy to come up with a list of commands that would install all the key components we're looking for, like Docker, and because you need an install, you need a test environment. Uh, yeah, you need an installer, the ability to code it, and a test environment all in a can. Um, would
Yes.
we lose BWEM or BWEB, FAP, or would we lose track of those if we transitioned ecosystems?
No, from the way I look at it, I think it's good to support the current tools as the way are currently supported. What I mean, like, it's not realistically for create like a new competition and ask existing authors that play on other competitions to make changes or to alter like the way that their bots are already running. I think that that's the way approach. So I'm not trying to do that. I think that if this will have some sort of success, it need to support the current libraries and the current tools. So from the older version of the BWTA, like the terrain analyzer, to the more modern PWM, or yeah, passing through the old Java bindings that are used today. I think supporting the existing ecosystem is important because it's not is the point is not create a new competition just for the Linux bots and separate like they have different no the it's not is the point with this is try to acknowledge that a problems kind of exists right now because the only realistically way to play right now and to compete right now with a bot that is built on to run on a Linux environment using all these available data analytics and deep learning
Hmm.
framework tools that exist today. Is you you can't the only thing, if you want to do that realistically today, you need to create a new competition, because right now the current state of affairs don't let you do that. The only way is through the binding, like through binding, to create like one Windows 32-bit application at the end of the day, and that, from my point of view, limits you. So I want a competition that run in a standard Linux 62 bits environment, and that can let developers to use whatever language they want to use. The only requirement that they have is a working BW API wrapper, so they can prove that they can, through that, develop a bot or run a bot, no matter how simple it is. If it's a for pool like we have in Windows competitions, but on Linux, I don't see why there is more difficulties for a for pool if you build it on Linux than if you build it on C++ or Java.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, go on.
No, sorry.
So, well, first of all, I think it's great and you should definitely try to make it happen. Second, and this is not so far, it is in February, I think, and that is not really enough time to make radical changes, as you mentioned. So, if that were to happen, I would aim for all the current bots to be able to participate, and then next year you could say, okay, now you have 1 year to prepare and make the necessary changes. Do you think that's a possibility, like a smooth transition?
Well, I don't really going to ask people to try to transit in a way. My plan is not ask anyone to stop using what works in the Windows environment. What I am proposing is that if someone out there want to use the Linux environment to code his bots, he or she have the possibility to do so at the same level as we can use if we want Scala, because the JVM is supported, or we can use the C++ language to code our bots. So what I'm not proposing is like transition to the Linux. I claim, of course, that is a more modern environment to do AI research today, because realistically is the environment in which you have like these industries running deep learning models and doing data analysis with tools that run on that environment. Uh, so if you want to use that environment, the idea is have the possibility to do so, not be at the end of the day conditioned, but how a Java manager software works, that only require competitive bots to be at the end of the day, as it is on current competitions, a 32 bits Windows application, no matter if it's a client bot or a DLL. That's our reality. It's rule wise. So the only I think like the only thing that don't follow this description is like the basic ladder. Yeah, and I know for sure that he has been enabled a plugin that let you like run bots in the Linux environment, thanks to a port forwarding mechanism, a port forwarding solution. But Basil, at great as it is, at useful as it is for both authors, is an individual effort. So yeah, ask him to pay the electricity and the hardware requirements for run a, for enable the Linux support is not realistically, given the fact that it's an individual ladder, like the Crazio ladder was before it.
I was gonna say that the Cherry Pie is set up on a Linux environment, at least when you set, and then I guess I set it up and compiled it, and I haven't transported it to a Windows environment, but its base home is Linux, and it somehow gets ported to Windows. But it might.
Yes, but there is like a Facebook team that have the money to go to all the efforts that you describe at the beginning when you just mention all the complexity that your students need to
Mhm.
acquire knowledge wise in order to have at the end of the day a bot enabling the competition. So they as the Samsung group can like they can this is not a problem for them realistically,
I
but
understand.
the Torchcraft or environment is very interesting, and the fact is that you have three bindings from since years ago, like since the 2016, something like that, that fully support Lua. That in the other in the more recent version, they start to support Python as well, because we transition to Torch 7 to from Torch 7 to PyTorch, like the Torch ecosystem transition.
Um,
And they have like bindings for the old Torch 7 that use Lua, and now for the PyTorch framework. And of course, they have like a third uh, front end that use C++. And what they have been using is the C++ frame for the CherryPy bot. But since the beginning, they released like the Torchcraft bindings that if you want to, you can develop a bot in Python using the Torchcraft wrapper. It's great. Equally with Lua, equally with C++, but in competition, you can only use the C++.
it. Well, I guess my point would be, given that particular project has all the components that I think you need to start developing or be developing, though using um, CherryPy as an example bot might be a little difficult, bit more than most people are willing to do. It might be closer to. It might be a good place to look. I'm not sure what extent Facebook is interested in continuing to support that particular project, or whether or not they want to make substantial add-ons to it. But um,
Well,
it
they are like two different projects. So we have Torchcraft, which is just a simple project. Is really the code base is really short, and that what it gives developers is like access through BW API, through Python, Lua, and C++.
mhm.
And then we have a more bigger project called Torchcraft AI, which is the guts of CherryPy the bot and other components. We have, for example, Blackboard, some kind of some sort of Blackboard in there, and another algorithms like the ones that you described at the beginning. So the CherryPy the bot is like source-wise related to Torchcraft AI, the project Torchcraft AI. And yes, that's kind of big and have the complexity that you are describing, and could be like a challenge for a developer that just is beginning on this area. But Torchcraft the wrapper is just a wrapper of BW API.
Mhm. Well, I guess my main point is it has a lot of the things. That project has several good things going for it already that might be. Um, I suppose it ties back to my earlier point of things that I'm looking for in a project.
Yes.
It's got nice install instructions. The installation was
Yes, no, I agree with you completely.
yeah.
In fact, the name of the competition that I am suggesting is Torch Up, because what I'm trying to do is like have developers access no access what in 3 months I can like I need to be like smart in the tools that I choose to make this possible. So what I use internally to code my bot is the Torchcraft, the Facebook project that yes have all these great qualities that you are describing and could be like in fact very 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 like good for not only for for the start for a student for I think and for
Mhm.
a more experienced developer.
Well, if anything can be done to make the install more one stop, slightly more one stop, then I would not have a problem. I would encourage my students actually to try uh, beginning in that direction. Though I don't know of any tournaments right now that are, as you said, I don't know of any tournaments that are set up to handle that um, level of program. I guess the if we build a Torchcraft or sorry, a Cherry Pie fork.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. You will encounter the same issues that I've been like bringing up.
mhm,
That at the end of the day, is not real. Is not a good option if your mission at the end of the day is compete on these tournaments, because yes, it's easy to quickly have a setup like you want, and you know that in Lua or Python you don't even compile. You just save the script and run the bot and start like the chaos launcher, and it's easy to iterate on this type of environment, but uh, that only give you advantages in the development area or in the educational area if you think of your students, but
mhm.
not if your mission is to make an application and compete, because at the end of the day, thanks to the Java tournament manager, you need to package everything in a Windows 32-bit application, and the same subject that we have been discussing.
But one point I'd like to raise that it is an open source conference, so that kind of implies that the submitted bots should be open sourced. Did you think about this, or do you think this should be a requirement? And this is a talking point, so and the question is not just to you.
To be honest with you, I've been thinking and with that a lot, and the way I look it is that closed source bots should be able to participate as well. And not because this is just a open source conference, but I'm thinking like I talking like more generally, because I think we are a small community and have cases like Crazy or Don competing because he can release the code of his bot, or the same with Haupan or other members of our community. I think is from the way personally that I look at that is sad. So if we can help them enable them to compete in a new tournament, that yeah, the focus is enable Linux bot, but it's not just focused around Linux and for Linux only. No, like I said, it's more about be a little bit more inclusive and be have the realistically option to say I can develop and compete in a StarCraft Brood War AI tournament with C++, Java, or whatever other language I might choose to develop the thing.
All right. I tend to agree on this. I think I get it that open source. This is an open source conference, but considering the state we are in, we shouldn't make that a requirement.
Yeah, and even quality wise, if you want to embrace the open source free software mantra, at the end of the day, if you have a software that is better, this is a competition. So what is the problem to prove that fact in the arena against other people that want to compete, that probably don't follow your views on licensing, but hey, he like you are members of this community and go through the process that we all need to go if you realistically want to have a competitive team. So why not just let them compete? Or even if you want to use Lisp, because there is like a rule on these tournaments that say that if you plan to use like a Lisp interpreter, like we are not from the start, they are like banning the thing, like don't even think about it. So no, instead of have those rules and be abide like be have to comply by the letter and the dots of the rules. I think that rules need to follow like in a competitive spirit, and rules are there to be broken sometimes.
Johan, Bryan, any opinions on the matter?
I am very neutral about open sourcing the results. I think it's look, our top bots are these open source projects, the cutest, except for Purple Wave. Or is Purple Wave open? Yeah, Purple Wave you could open source, but it's
I
in
think it
some
is, yes.
yeah, it's protected in some way by its choice in code from being forked. McRave, I think all the code's there. And then yeah, it's Locutus. It is normal for some of our top bots to be open source-ish. They've been like Steamhammer seems to have fallen a bit, but it's not unusual for a high-end bot to be open source. I don't know how restrictive of a assumption it is, and I'm pretty neutral towards it, given that if someone copies my bot, that's good, and my students copy my bot every semester with some change. And so actually I'm really close. Anyway, yeah, my students copy my bot every semester with some change, so I don't mind if more people want to. Anyway, I'm not sure how strong of a change that would be. I'm neutral towards it.
Okay, well, I would kind of like it if there was also a tournament that allows closed source bots, because we don't have any at this moment. So indeed, some of the other bots can compete as well. But I do also think that it does not matter too much to the bots that are already open source at this moment. I think they will remain open source.
Yeah.
Do you imagine there's some unconsumed pocket of open source bots or closed source bots that we haven't utilized yet?
Well, we mentioned Crazio, and I believe also Hapan.
Oh yeah, Halpan has corporate entanglements.
Yeah, both of them are very competitive, nice, strong bots. So it's a shame really to don't have them on any type of competition right now.
Well, I'm up for any competition with Halpan because randomly my bot beats him for some reason. I don't know what's going on, but once every like 400 games I beat him, as opposed to 0 to all the other bots in his tier. So let's get him in there.
Yeah, and also the only issue with this is to prevent cheating. So just you maybe want to verify the sources of the bots, so no one submits a different bot, but there are ways to do that. You can just store a hash or something. You don't have to have the bot source anyway. And the next concern, have you thought about the map pool itself and how the maps would be assigned? Would that be a fixed map pool, every bot plays on every map, or a random selection of a predefined list, or what's your preferred way? And as a bot author, Johan, Bryan, what is the map allocation method you prefer?
I would say I would prefer some, at least some modern maps. And also the map selection should probably not be random. I talked about this earlier. Maps are an important part of balance between the different matchups. So I think you should choose maps that are actually a map set that actually is balanced. So not random.
I'm quite neutral towards the map set. I feel I feel there's already one tournament that occasionally uses maps that are simply unpleasant for the map analysis, but I'm not sure there's a lot of motivation for people to use to improve the map analysis. We have enough trouble. So I think most people are more interested in improving the tactics and long-term strategy of the bots than they are map analysis and GIS systems. But so as long as the maps, I have no problem just doing the same standard maps. I don't know if most bots are sophisticated enough for the map choice to have a major impact. At least mine isn't, but there's a lot of people who are well above what I currently can do. So we'll see.
Okay, my current proposal about the map pool is have a map pool very similar like the one that Antigua proposed because it's very competitive, but with a little modification. What I mean by that is that it's a 6 map pool and you have 2 4 bases map, 2 3 bases map, and 2 player map. So there is like symmetry in that. The map pool is Circuit Breaker, 4 player map, Neo Aztec, 3 player map, Trespass, 2 player map, Fighting Spirit, 4 player map, Powerbound, 3 player map, and Overwatch, which is a 2 player map. The only modification with the map pool that is used competitive right now, I think, will be they are using Gladiator, which is a 4 player map, and here I'm changing it for a 3 player map, which is Neo Aztec, to have the symmetry in the 4 3 and 2 players maps. That about the map pool. I also have like a little let's say like modification on the way that the tournament is structured. Hopefully simple. It's not well. Let's take a look. The tournament is like a round robin tournament with many rounds as possible. The format is of course 1-on-1, but we are going to play best of the round is composed by a best of 5 maps, like best of 5 match, and the maps used to that best of 5s are randomly chosen, but it's not that the map is chosen random. The only thing that is random is what is the map that you are like playing. But
So it's an elimination bracket, not a full free for all.
no. Well, there is an elimination bracket at the end, but around will be like a round robin, like a lot of round robin rounds. But the round is composed of best of 5 maps using the map pool. All the maps are randomly selected to the map pool without a duplicate location, so you can have like two maps in the same map. A round ends when the participants complete a best of 5 match between all others in all the maps. And after that round robin is completed, the way that we select a winner is that the top 4 bots will play a single elimination bracket seeded 1 against 4 and 2 against 3. And that's it.
Sounds good. As
There
far
will
as
be
I
yeah, it's probably like too complex to. It's not complex, but like hard for me to. It's more easily if you read it like on the website, and hopefully the website will be like upload today. After with the podcast, the URL is torchup.org, and hopefully we can make the tournament a reality. And I promise you, it's not that complex as I describe it here. Yeah, we can hopefully read it in the page later today.
I will just add the link to the description, and hopefully it will be up soon. And so the name is Torchup. You decided on that. That is good. You can advertise it. And I'd like to add that I think we should learn from COG's example and have it announced and cleared up as soon as possible. So everyone who wants to participate have enough time to prepare and there are no uncertainties. And I think Antigua can help a lot with that because he has been around tournaments for a long time.
Yes, he has been helped with valuable feedback, and it's great.
And I would advertise it on the FOSDEM site as well, and well, as many places as possible. So maybe new people can join in.
Thank you. Like I said, the aid is that the website will be like up with as soon as you release the cast. Really, if not, if there is nothing there, it will be later, still today. And the idea is start promoting the event and start like making noise around the Ignore Linux community, so to speak, and have fun. Yeah, have fun. Compete and have fun.
I have to step up a little and release the chapters for my book about VWAPI a little bit faster, I think.
Yes, that will help people that are interested in this area more now than ever, that you are having these appearances in the more in the other pilot show that have this great audience for people that are probably not aware of all of this.
Oh yeah, it certainly helps. I have 2 more questions to ask. By the way, Johan, Bryan, feel free to interrupt me anytime. I've been talking a lot. So the first is, what kind of disqualification criteria or rules are you thinking about? Like what are the things are permitted and not permitted? Beside the obvious, like intentionally crashing the game and manipulating memory addresses and hacking.
Yeah, currently the rules are based on what is working from the AIIDE and COG websites. I'm really not making this, inventing this from my own, really. So the rule wise, the same restrictions that you have today on any competition applies here, but like the if you want to describe it like with words, I think that from the way I looking at is that we on bot competitions must like follow like the same sort of rules that human competitions does. What I mean by that is like if some tricks could be exploited in a good way, like the massive recall that BananaBrain wants to implement someday, I think, or any other players, I think that authors don't need to feel that they can get disqualified for do that. I think that on the contrary, there is like tricks or common exploits that we can do and humans do in every game, like the worker stack that Locutus bring a few days ago, and all of these of elements make the game more richer, like more. There currently they are issues, of course, like a bugs on the engine, but they are part of the gameplay today and the meta and what is part of the game.
I think SSCIT has a lot of good points about this. And that begs the question, what is the BW API version or versions you would like to support? Or maybe better phrase it as, what's the minimum BW API version to participate?
Currently, I have an environment in place, which is the one that I use to develop my bot. With that, I can test against BWAPI 4.1.2 and 420 and the latest 4.4.4. Those three versions are the ones that I think are going to make it to the tournament, because I don't know if the BWAPI 5 is going to be released by then, but even if they release, which is of course a great thing, I don't think that will left me with the time needed to test it, the new environment, like completely, and be sure that works that use that version of BWPI could participate. But right now, today I have a working environment that runs on Linux, and it's not using Docker. It's using Singularity containers, but it's a way for me to have all in the same package way, and I can not only activate it or run easily bots running in Python or in Lua, thanks to the Torchcraft project of the Facebook guys, but I also can run Purple Wave in Java or whatever other existing bots. I copy the mechanisms that the SEC Docker have to pull off the bots from the ACCIT tournament. So for me, it's just I can like execute a command and pull off Locutus, for example, and play against it, or execute my bot, which is in PyTorch 1.4 right now. And yeah, so I think is I think that is realistically to support those three versions, and even if the new version 5 get released, it's not too much time for me to test with that. But I don't think there's going to came up in 3 months enough BWAPI 5 bots.
I would say require at least 4.4, because earlier versions had some possibilities to cheat, which have been resolved in 4.4. But on the other hand, maybe some bots won't be able to participate if you do that. But I do think it's a good idea to require a newer version.
Yeah, I hear the Antigua argument, which is only use the 444, and he have his reasons, and it's a good approach, because what he's trying to do, of course, is help us as a community to update and to use like newer versions of the BW API project. The point that I bring is that the project that I use, Torchcraft, the one that gives me the integration in Linux, not only for the Lua language but also for the Python language, using Torch or PyTorch, that is bind to the all versions of BW API. To be specific, the 4.20 version. yeah, that's the current stable release of Torchcraft project, which is this wrapper is the 1.4, and they are bind to that version of PW API. And I think I agree with you that there is things that hopefully people are not competing to exploit these sort of issues. The way that I approach the competition is thinking that if you want to compete, you are not here like trying to read the rules and see what thing you can exploit and how you can do like damage or have an advantage over your component because you exploit something. Is not is of course like there is of course the possibility that competitors like that exist, but I really think they are, if they are any of them, is a minority, a complete minority if they exist. I think that all of the involved on these sort of events are here to follow a competitive spirit, and they really care and want to prove in the arena, and, in the actual game, with what bot is better.
All right, last point I have. Do you plan any prizes?
Well, hopefully, if there is someone that want to came up with that sort of sponsorship to the organization, it will be like nice to have some prizes, of course. But following like the FOSDEM spirit, this is a self-organized event for members of the community, sort of thing. So it's not don't expect any prizes kind of thing. Expect to you can expect like all the nice things that they are around an event, in like a FOSDEM event, like go there to at least see about the results of the competition, and not only share with developers of this BW API community, but also be near a more like bigger developer conference and sort of audience in Europe. So I think it's a good place to take some beers and socialize, and it's also a good place to have a Broodware AI competition that have a new audience that probably we are not exploring at its fullest, since it's not realistically to use the Linux environment in any competition so far.
And maybe some presentation, live streaming, or even streaming and casting the games during the finals would be a nice thing, because so far we only have casting of the replays for most tournaments. I've been thinking about this, and for the existing tournaments it's not really a possibility, but if you make a new one, maybe try to organize that. I think it would bring more attention to this scene, and if I were a bot author in the finals, I would surely watch that live.
Yeah, that sounds great. The results presentation, I'm sure it will have his live stream and his video release after the event. But yeah, I think you bring a nice point. I think the like I said, there will be the way that we define a winner is have the four top bots playing a single elimination bracket, seeded like the first against the four and the second against the third. I think that late state of the tournament could have his stream, and they are not even, I think, like we can choose like the better games, of course. And yeah, it sounds fun. I think it's great. Hopefully you can like help us, since you have like that
Well,
experience like casting like.
I'm not the best live caster, but If the opportunity arises, I would be glad to help.
Don't sell short your skills, man. You have been improving. I don't know how is the count of your SCIT cast since you start, but yeah, if you compare the first one with the last one, there's
Well, and it's
there's
better
growth.
better than nothing. So, and at least we have that. Okay, I think that's all I have. I don't know if you want to bring up any more topics. I think this has been an exhaustive analysis of recent tournaments, and yeah, I asked everything I wanted to.
Well, just thanks for the opportunity to bring these subjects again and to talk about hopefully the competition event. Uh, just an invitation of all of you to participate. The idea is have an environment that don't require you to make any sort of modifications that can run your existing competitive bots, but also let other ones to compete, specifically anyone that can use or want to use the Torchcraft front ends. But yeah, so if you want to use Python, if you want to use Lua, hopefully you can do it in this event. And if you have a closed source bot and you want to have an opportunity to play against others, this is your tournament as well. So I think the FOSDEM event is also very a nice opportunity to know each other in person if you want to go there. If not, you have the opportunity to see it live in streaming or watch it later. So yeah, please participate, please join. Don't ignore the Linux environment. And yeah, we have Python, we have deep learning tools, machine learning stuff, a lot of goodies. So yeah, hopefully you are going to join. Please join.
Yeah,
That's it.
okay. Anything else, Brian, Johan?
No.
I'm set.
Okay, thanks for being here in this quite long podcast, and it has been awesome. And see you next time.
See you next
See you
time.
next time.
Thank you.